According to the cyber universe, we are a minute or so late, so I'd like to call this meeting of the Faribault School Board to order. Mr. Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, we have all members present.
Thank you, sir. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for being here. Our first item is to approve the agenda. I have not been made aware of any changes or anything that we should take note of, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to item 3, some recognition awards and presentations. Item A is from a donation coming from the estate of David Thomas Jackson. And I understand there is someone here to speak to that.
So on behalf of the Faribault Athletics Department, I'd like to welcome Karen Evans and her husband Rick Evans up. Earlier this past summer and into this fall, we received notice that we were going to be receiving a pretty sizable donation. Numbers changed a little bit throughout the process, but all in all, the athletics department itself received over $160,000 towards our programming and towards our funding from the estate of Karen's brother, David Jackson, who passed away this past summer. In addition to that $160,000+, Karen's family, an extended family, donated another $15,000 to the Faribault Booster Club as well. So overall, Karen's family has donated over $175,000 that will go into Faribault Public Schools and will impact our kids in some regard. So I'd like to invite Karen up to talk a little bit about, just for a minute or two, about her brother Dave and kind of why he felt compelled to donate this to the Faribault Public Schools.
Thanks, Danny. So my brother was a huge fan of athletics in all levels, high school, college, professional, just loved them all. I have to give Rick a little credit here, however, because he helped David write his will about 10 years ago. And he said, you know, my brother, I don't think he would have thought it through very well, said, you know, you got to decide how you're going to divide things up and who gets what. And is there any nonprofit that you might like to donate money to? And my brother came up with the Faribault High School Sport, because that was something that he went to a lot of games. People remember him sitting there with Doc and Betty Lewis and by himself sometimes. And apparently he went to a lot of the games where his friends' children were playing in, but I think he just went generally. So it was an important part of his life here. He wasn't married, he didn't have children, so it was like, you know, it was his community, to say the least. So, you know, he came to Faribault because of a job right after, a couple years after college, and he stayed because of the community. And I just have to say that, you know, and just in settling his estate and doing things here, everybody has been remarkably kind and nice and going out of their way. And I'm going like, wow, I can see why he was so comfortable here. And I have nothing but kind things. Danny and Chad and Bob and I one day saw, I saw the football field, and we went to the high school. It's in what the Booster Club has done, and it's very impressive. So it's nice to be able to make the gift. So thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Just for a little bit of context as far as the money goes, $100,000 of it is earmarked towards reducing the costs of athletics and activities for our kids. So we'll be having more discussions here in the coming months on how exactly that looks to try to impact as many kids and for as many years to come as possible. The other $60,000 is kind of earmarked for us to impact our programming, impact our community in some way. So we'll be having some larger conversations as well on what we should do with that money too.
Thank you, Mr. Duchesne. On behalf of the board, I'd like to express our thanks to you, your family, for your very generous donation to help our students, and we'll put it to good use. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, item B is to recognize our girls swim team who had a successful state competition. So here we go.
At this time, I'd like to ask Coach Hubert to come up. We'll give a little brief synopsis of the season and then introduce the girls. You all know Ken, right?
Hi. Just as Danny has asked for a brief synopsis of the season, to be quite honest, overall it was a very, very fun season, a great year. For the first time in 12 years, the girls finished the dual meet part of the season unbeaten, which has only happened a few times as far as the overall season is concerned. Big Nine Conference champions. That's the first time in a decade that the girls have done that. And that was actually a great meet that ended up in a tie with Rochester Mayo. First time in the history of the Big Nine that there's been a tie for the conference championship in either boys or girls swimming and diving. And then section meet, we were section runner-ups to Northfield. But you know, these girls here, between them, they won 10 of the 12 events, both at the Big Nine meet and at the section meet. Truly a tremendous amount of talent among them. Qualified for state in a number of different places, had 13 different performances, I believe, at state, and we were able to walk away with a state championship in the 200 medley relay with an All-American consideration time. It'll be borderline whether they're named All-American or not. We don't know that until this summertime. But obviously a great time, school record by several seconds this year. And a 200 free relay that set a school record, and a few other school records individually that I'll share as we go along. I'm not gonna, excuse me, I'm not gonna lie. We had some struggles at the state meet, and I put that on me. The girls did a great job. They did everything they could, and they should be proud of what they did, and you guys should be proud of what they did as well. So if I can introduce them one by one here. First of all, Annika Vaninsky. Annika was on the 400 free, yeah, just line up here. Oh, we'll wait here. Yep, there you go.
Can we get them on camera? I mean, you can come
Yeah,
right
you
here and
gotta-
stand
a little
face that way. We'll look at your
There you
back of
go.
your head for it.
Then have Drew put them on camera,
There,
not,
yeah, there we go.
not
Cover me up, that's good.
There we go. Good.
You're perfect, right there.
All right, got it.
So Annika was part of a Big Nine Conference champ 200 medley relay, and she was part of the 400 free relay that qualified for state as well. Just a little piece of info about Annika that I think is something that the Faribault School District should be proud of. Annika right now is in process attempting for an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy. She's already interviewed with Amy Klobuchar, and obviously she's got to wait for a little while for an interview with Mr. Franken, Senator Franken. He's not doing that right now. Next, Megan Gerke. Megan qualified for state in the medley relay, in the 50 free, the 100 free, and in the 200 free relay. So she was part of that state championship medley relay. Several years in a row that Megan has been a part of that state meet, and she's done a great job, again, as a senior, just as Annika is. Anna Neitz. This was Anna's first year at the state tournament. Anna qualified in diving and finished 22nd in diving at the state meet. Gesa Wilden. Gesa is a foreign exchange student from Germany. Usually when we get a foreign exchange student that wants to come out for swimming, they've had a few swim lessons, and they're fun to have on the team. Geisa was different. Geisa qualified for state in 4 events. She was a significant part of our medley relay that did so well. Swam on the 400 free relay and set school records for us actually in both the 50 free and the 100 butterfly. Abby Larson. Abby is a 9th grader, and Abby for 2 years in a row now has qualified for state in the 200 free, the 500 free, the 200 free relay, and the 400 free relay. Abby is part of our cooperative sponsorship with Bethlehem Academy. She is a 9th grader at Bethlehem Academy, but she has represented Faribault, and BA is in Faribault, and part of the program. She has represented Faribault extremely well. And Verity Ray Robley. Verity qualified for state. She led off our medley relay with the backstroke leg. She qualified for state in the 100 butterfly and the 100 backstroke and the 400 free relay. So 4 events, that's all you can as far as a swimmer is concerned. And so Verity is also part of the cooperative sponsorship. She also attends Bethlehem Academy, and great addition to the team this year, first year with us as a 9th grader. And last, and she will tell you, certainly not least, Bree Bresnahan. Bree is a senior who she qualified for us in the breaststroke as part of the medley relay. She qualified in the 100 breaststroke and in the 200 free relay, part of that. Bree finished 2nd in the state last year in the 100 breaststroke, slid a couple spots this year, but she's been truly both a practice leader and a vocal leader on our team. I'll leave it at that. We're missing Malia Stone, but these are the girls who participated at the state meet this past, or the week before Thanksgiving. So, nice job, girls.
Now you guys can go around and shake hands, starting with your other fellow students.
Thank you, Mr. Hubert. Thank you, ladies, for all that you have demonstrated about the power to achieve and the will to excellence. So thank you very much. Moving on to item 3C, we have a presentation regarding our 9th grade academy, and our high school principal, Mr. Benty, is here.
So the first thing I'd like to do is thank the board for allowing us to come this evening and do some presentations. I want to apologize for my voice. I think, getting over and starting a cold all at the same time. So apologize for the beard. I am in a No Shave November contest, which after seeing the competition today, pretty sure I'm not going to win. So the presentation tonight is basically 3 parts. One, I'm here to just kind of give you some raw data that we've pulled from the first quarter from this program that we've started this year. The second part is we have a couple teachers that teach within the academy that are here to say a few words, and then we actually have a couple students as well for any questions that you have, and they have prepared something small to say as well. So looking at, in case you don't understand, the high school is broken into 4 quarters. However, grades are recorded by semester. So I'm able to look at quarter grades to see progress that we're making from years past against other students or from years past against our own students. So when I look at this information, there we go, how we're collecting the data is we're looking at this right now in two different ways. And this has been one of the biggest challenges that we've come up with, myself and Joe Sage, along with some of the teachers in the academy, is how do we want to measure the success or the lack of success of the academy? So we're starting out by looking at it in two different ways. One is we want to look at these students where they are today versus where these exact same students were 1 year ago. So it's more of an apples to apples comparison. The other part of it is we want to look at where these students are versus their counterparts that are not in the academy. So we're going to kind of show you both sides of this. So the first is looking at our academy students versus our non-academy students. So these are our ninth graders that are in the academy, 62 of them, versus the other 250 ninth graders that are not in the academy, okay? So the first thing that you can see is the academy consists of 4 classes, all right? 3 of them are core level classes, English, world history, and science, and then there's a seminar that is part of the academy as well. So when we look at the percentage of students who failed a content class within the academy versus outside the academy, you can see the differences here. So in world history, we had 4 academy students fail it versus 11 non-academy students. Same thing for science, 3 within the academy versus 37 outside the academy. And in English, 5 students versus 26. So when you break those down by percentages, it shows you the percentages that are not being successful within the academy versus outside of the academy. We were at about 34% total students, ninth graders, that were not being successful. This year, we are sitting at 20.5% at the same time period. So as we're looking, the number is dropping. Failed 1 or more classes within the ninth grade academy was at 19%. Outside of the academy was 22%. Right? That's where you get your average of 20.5%. Last year at the same time, we were sitting at, like I said, right around 34%. Okay. Now, looking at these 62 students today versus where these same 62 students were 1 year ago. So what we did was we looked at their classes that they were not being successful in as of the end of Q1 of their ninth grade year, and then we went back and looked at what courses were they not successful in at the end of Q1 in their 8th grade year, okay? Last school year, at the end of the first quarter, these 62 students had 77 total Fs. At the end of this first quarter, we had dropped that to 23. Students that had 1 or more Fs in Q1, there were 37, and we've dropped that to 12. So we've gone from 60% of these 62 students that had an F down to 19% of them at the end of the first quarter of the ninth grade year that currently have an F. Okay. This is broken down to where are they struggling or where are they being successful. So this is looking at, you had 6 of 62 students that failed a course within the academy and 10 of 62 that failed a course outside of the academy. And outside of the academy would be math or one of their 2 electives. So,
will math ever be part of the academy?
I don't see math as being part of the academy because we have so many different levels of math as it is, that to bring it inside the academy really creates a lot of nightmares.
Okay.
With staffing, it would create a huge expense to try to bring it inside the academy.
So as everybody knows, I've been a big proponent of this, and thank you to Mr. Sage, thank you to your team, whoever makes up the academy. As you go through the year, it'd be really, really great if you identified things that you don't have in the academy that could maybe make it better.
Okay.
So instead of going at 30 miles an hour, how do we go at 60 miles an hour? How do we go at 80 miles? How do we make this even better, right? These numbers on paper look fantastic.
Yes.
How do we make it better in year 2? How do we make it better in year 3?
Yes. And those are discussions that Mr. Sage and myself are currently having as well.
Awesome. So. Great job, though, to you and your whole team. Awesome.
So now we have 2 teachers from the academy. If you have any questions for them or for me.
I'd like to just say, Mr. Bente, you've been talking to the board about this program for several years. You and others were able to put it together in a way that seemed to be not only cost effective, but academically effective, and the numbers that we're seeing tonight prove that. So thank you for your persistence in pushing for this opportunity for our students.
And Jamie, you can pick up the mic and pass it around. It doesn't have to stay stationary, so as they talk, just pick up the mic and take it too.
So now I'll just let them...
Do you want to grab, you have to grab the mic.
I would just let them go ahead and introduce themselves and say a little bit about, I told the students, I said, say what you like, say what you don't like, just be honest about the academy. So I have no idea what they're going to say.
Big surprise. Good evening. My name's Kim Johnsrud, and I'm the academic interventionist for the academy, and I just love it. I've been a classroom teacher for a long time, and as a classroom teacher, there have been so many moments where, especially when I'm doing like daily work checks and walking up and down the aisles, and you know which students are struggling. You know who's falling behind. And it's like the train is just going so fast. There's not time for the kinds of interventions that you would like to do. I had most of my career in the district. I've been at the middle school, and which is why I feel this was just such a gift to be able to be part of this, because it's a really great bridge between the teaming at the middle school and before all of the variety at the high school. And so we have these teaming components where the teachers are able to collaborate and problem solve. So, and where we're able to together notice what students are needing. So, so that has been, I think, a real benefit of the academy. Some of the things that I think have made it a real good catch for kids and giving them a better experience in 9th grade is the smaller class sizes. And we have flexibility with, there's 2, I'll just call us flexible teachers, where we can, we're not carrying the curriculum. Cassie Onstead is a special ed teacher on the team, and then myself, and we can be in any particular class, and depending on what's going on, that can change. And so that's been helpful to have the extra teacher in the room. That really brings that ratio down even more. Seminar has been described as a homeroom on steroids. It's homeroom with purpose. It's not just study hall where students are making, and I'm seeing Sam here. Students make their choice on how they use their study hall period, and in the academy, it is more structured. There are missing assignment sheets that are regularly distributed. We have goal sheets, and we have a daily agenda that we put up. reminding students of what to work on and what's coming up. So that infrastructure that really helps to keep all of us, the students and the teachers, eye on the ball, that we are being very purposeful. The flexible scheduling that we're able to do, that's kind of that teaming component that we appreciate so much at the middle level. We're able to do that where makeup days are big when those assignment lists start getting kind of long, and we can just kind of put things aside and take care of that. We've even had things happen where a teacher, when we had the water break, okay, so that interfered with 6th period, right? And so, then we were able to, and there were 2 tests in the academy that day, and probably throughout the building on a Friday in the high school. It's a big test day. So anyways, but we were able to, teachers can pull particular kits. So the flexible scheduling is huge. So those components really have helped make this successful. And I guess one other thing, I lost my screen, and then I had to remember my passcode while I'm trying to talk, and it doesn't work very well. So the other thing is that I just really think that helping students get off to a good start is so key. And when we got through first quarter, even if some students didn't have maybe as high a grades as maybe they would have wanted to, so many said, well, I've never had this high of grades. So when I talk to the non-academy teachers and they see some of our academy students struggling, so sure, maybe they're struggling with a C or a D, but they're doing better maybe in that non-academy, like math is a common one, than they were doing before, and that's even in the non-academy. And then they're doing even better in the academy classes because of all the infrastructure we have with those 3 subjects. So it's just so great to have them get off to a good start, and we're reducing failures, which is going to help with their schedules as they proceed through high school. So those are some things that I've seen. And this is Megan Blackstead.
Hi, I'm Megan Blackstead. One thing that I really like about the academy this year is just like smaller classrooms, so teachers can like focus on one student more than like if there was more students in the classroom. I know that last year I was really struggling with a lot of my classes, and this year having the seminar time and a teacher to like put me back on track and everything has really helped. So.
Thank you, Megan.
Hi, my name is Saddam. The academy has really helped me put myself in the right path, because last year wasn't my best year, but that's in the past. And now the academy teachers really give me an opportunity to do better than I was.
My name is Peter Stenross. I teach physical science within the academy, and I don't know if I can really add a whole lot more to what's been said. I do want to take this opportunity to thank the teachers within the academy that aren't here. Miss Daniels, she teaches English within the academy, and Miss Elric, who's new to our district this year, teaching world history. And so one of the things that I think has really contributed a lot to those numbers that you saw is the strength of the teachers within the academy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a part of it, but one thing that's been very beneficial is being able to work with teachers that have the same exact students that I have. And so we've oftentimes been able to brainstorm solutions that are working in one class and carry that into another class. Something that with the changing of classes at semester time, we just haven't been able to do in the past. And so that's a huge contributing factor to the success of the academy. And so just to talk a little bit about my own personal experience within the academy, it's a lot of work. I kind of went into it a little bit naive, thinking that like it wasn't going to, I could just tweak things that I've been doing in the past. And I've really kind of gone back to the drawing board with a lot of the things that I'm doing within science in the academy, which has actually in a way strengthened my non-academy physical science class in the same time. And so it's brought a lot of great conversations within the science department as well. And so I really look forward to continuing those conversations and kind of taking things that we're learning from the academy to the rest of the school, because I know that was one of the driving forces within the academy that we were looking to do. But then also to kind of piggyback off of what Saddam said here, I had more students this year than I've ever had in the past within the academy say that they really hadn't had a chance to feel successful at school. And I think the academy, at least within the first quarter, has really provided students with the ability to see that hard work with the support system that's in place really provides them with the opportunity to succeed. And really all they need is that little kernel of success, and that's just gonna blossom. And so that's something else that I've noticed and just heard from students. And so I don't know if you guys were aware, we were able to, because of the flexible scheduling, take our academy students, all 62 of them, to the Mankato University. And obviously the highlight was eating the cafeteria food, but we were actually able to meet up with a few of our old AVID students. And they had a kind of a brief question and answer session with some of our students, but we were able to take a tour of the campus, and just some of the conversations about college and post secondary education that sparked is something that I haven't been able to do in the past with the first and second year that I've been in Faribault. So some of the conversations that are taking place within the academy has been very, very rewarding.
Well, thank you all. It is the mission of the board to try and help create the infrastructure for success. And when Mr. Benty brought the academy idea to us, that's what it seemed to be centered on, and we had to find a way to make it work, and you folks have found that way. I believe you're headed in the right direction. You're doing the kinds of things with our students that will help them be successful, and that is the purpose of this whole operation. So thank you all. Thank your fellow academy teachers. Thank the high school staff for their willingness to cooperate and help facilitate this program. Part of what I heard this evening has been near and dear to my heart for over 40 years, and that is, how do you tell when a student is doing well? And I think you folks have your finger on that, is that relationship and that daily effort and that performance over time. And the idea that if we can give them a small taste of success, our students will take that and build on it. So that's what I'm hearing. That's what I hope to continue to hear. And thank you all for your efforts. And I'd like to echo what Mr. Wolf said earlier. If there is something that you need, please let us know. We don't have unlimited resources, but we like to build on success, and this certainly seems to be a big step towards success. So thank you all.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add another thing. I agree completely with your comments and with Chad's comments, and I just want to emphasize those in the way that I can. In January, I start my 10th year on this board, and I've had lots and lots of presentations of ways to improve our schools. By and large, I think most have been great things that we have implemented. It is exceptionally rare, as in I can't think of another example in which we can set out a goal. In this case, it was reducing the number of failures and improving success of our students, and measure that goal as dramatically as it looks like we are doing right now. I can't think of a single example in 9 years on this board. That is dramatic. It is to be commended. I remember when you came to us with this proposal, and I remember seeing the Northfield numbers, because they also had a dramatic change. And I remember looking at it and thinking, well, if you can do that, it's worth anything we can put into it. We're early on, and I'm sure there's lessons to be learned and ways to improve, but already it looks like there's a dramatic shift. And that is exceptionally rare. And that's perhaps the best way I can just say how impressed I am with where we're at right now, and I hope we keep going forward, and I just echo all the other things that have been said. So thank you guys very much for all the efforts and time you've put into it. I know it was not easy. I lost a coach to it, so I get some credit for it too.
Thank you all. Other questions or comments from the board?
I just say thank you to the students. We really appreciate you coming to speak with us. We get to hear staff speak all the time, so it's nice to hear from you. Thanks.
Just briefly, I'm encouraged to hear that what you're learning about your teaching and students learning in the academy is spreading to your other courses as well. And I think if you look, for example, programs like AVID, programs that select a group of students, people learn things about what's going on that apply and then improve the rest of the building as well. So thank you for that. What is the overlap between AVID students and academy students?
So currently there isn't an overlap, and so if they were an AVID student coming to the high school, they wouldn't be within the academy. What I'm seeing from students that I've had in the past that were AVID 9 students or students that became AVID students in 10th grade is that I know for a fact that we are going to become a feeding program for it's going to bolster our AVID numbers greatly. The skills that they're building within the academy are going to easily transfer over into the AVID program. And I can already picture in my mind countless students that are already exhibiting a lot of the features of your typical AVID student, the outgoingness, the seeking out teachers for extra assistance. And so that is our hope, and that was it was a secondary goal. Obviously it was is how can we best support the AVID mission within our school from the academy. And so I hope to see many of our students continue into the AVID program after 9th grade. I don't know if I answered.
The D in AVID stands for determination, and it's got to be easier to be determined to be successful in high school and go to college if you didn't fail 1, 2, 3 of your freshman classes.
Correct.
So there's a good linkage there. Students fail because why? Attendance, homework. Is there a common theme, and does it vary? And congratulations on your numbers, but between your regular classes and your academy classes, do you see a difference there?
So I can only speak for the failures that I've given or that the students have earned. And more often than not, I'd say 99% of the time it's due to attendance. I tell the students all the time, I can't teach you if you're not in your seat. And so especially in a lab-based course like physical science, you miss a lab, you can't make that lab up the next day during class, and if you do, you're missing the next day's worth of class material. And so trying to get students to come in outside of school is kind of the never-ending battle that is physical science, where if they miss a 56-minute lab, they need to spend 56 minutes after school, and a lot of them either aren't willing, aren't able. So within the academy, what I've seen is with that longer seminar period, I've had students be able to run a 56-minute lab in that shorter amount of time. And so they're able to make that up and still catch their bus, get their ride from a brother, sister, parent, guardian. And so that's been something that I've noticed mostly. But it's the attendance that generally within my class, it results in failures.
And then finally, is there a difference in attendance between the academy and non-academy students? Did you look at that?
That is one of the pieces that we're trying to figure out right now. We know by looking at attendance that our attendance within the academy is much better than our attendance outside the academy, but trying to prove that with data right now is what we're kind of struggling with a little bit. So that is a piece we're looking at, is how do we, my gut says yes, but how do I get my numbers and my data to say yes as well? So,
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm a senior this year in the high school, and I've been a part and gone through all these classes that the guys and girls are going through right now. And what I think this program is really helping with is it's kind of giving them a life jacket, because when you go from middle school to high school, it's kind of like you're just like jumping into the water, and you're not really there is help there, but sometimes you're too scared to go and ask for help. And I think what this program is also doing is helping them develop a work ethic, which, knowing from my personal experience, my 9th grade year was not the best year. Definitely, if you look at my report cards, the grades are not that great. My mom would definitely tell you about that. But what it helped me learn in going through these classes and working with teachers is working on developing a work ethic. And I think that's what can really help them. And then when it comes with attendance, too, they're not there to develop that work ethic, and because they're missing out in classes and not developing that. But what I'm sounding like what the program helps is it helps the students develop a work ethic, and I think that's really huge in the high school.
Thank you very much.
A couple questions. With the students, do you feel better about yourself?
Personally, I'm more confident in my work that I turn in, and like on tests, I feel like I'm more likely to pass the test than I was in 8th grade, because I'm looking at my grades and I'm seeing like I'm seeing the reflection from like working with teachers and stuff and like other students that are in the seminar, because everybody that's in the seminar has the same teacher, so we're all doing the same things at the same time. So we can always ask other students too for questions if like a teacher's busy or they like need to do something else. So that really helps.
Well, most of my classes, they give a lot of homework out. Not a lot, but they give labs out and stuff like that. And some of them that I miss out, I could always get it done before the due date. Or if it's due and I don't have it done, he always lets me bring it in without being late. So it really helps me. If I miss a day, I could always make it up. And if I can't get it done, he always helps me, or she always helps me, teacher. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We can get quarterly reports.
We're just going to do it. Yeah, we will. We'll give you updates all the time as they become relevant with Mr. Benty and doing his research. You bet. Yep.
Something I see in the classrooms that Megan and Saddam were kind of referring to here is how, because it's a smaller group, 62 kids, broken up into 3 groups, and they all have the common teachers, they are helping each other in other subjects during work time. So in science, when they're working on test corrections, I did hear today, hey, what are we doing in English? Oh yeah, I got to get that done. And there is more commonality there than in the average high school classroom, where there might be 4 or 5, well, maybe not 5, but maybe 3 or 4 teachers teaching the same history class, and then the assignments are different. So as any thoughts on expanding, I think having those clusters or pods, if you will, of smaller groups is definitely has that benefit the kids are referring to.
So Megan touched on the fact that within seminar, one of our major focuses is preparing the students for homeroom in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and using that time wisely, like Sam had talked about, and building that work ethic. And so one of the major points that we've really built into seminar is, and we've kind of backed away from Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This quarter we're going to work on just Monday and Friday, where the students hop on their iPads, log onto the portal, and check their grades, find any missing assignments, write down why those are missing or what they're going to do to get those assignments in. And so it's just things that I would love for my, last year I had a 10th grade homeroom that I was trying to get them to do, but it's not something that you can just say, hey, check this, and they're going to do it every day past that. It's something that you kind of have to really build in. And so having the ability, being a one-to-one district, having the online grade management system provides them with this, I wouldn't call it instant feedback because I haven't been the greatest with putting it in the next day, but it provides them with that, to see kind of the fruits of their labor, like Saddam, if he misses a day, stays after school, makes up that lab, gets it in, and gets rid of that missing assignment right away. That's really bringing down the grades. And so that's something that's been major, and I'm sure they would be willing to speak on that, that has really helped students just not necessarily, because grades are one aspect of school. I think the academy really builds more than just grades into the students' lives. But at the end of the day, grades do matter when it comes to at semester time. And so kind of bridging that gap within seminar where the students can work with other students that have the same exact teachers, I think, again, is one of the strengths and kind of shows you those numbers where in your given homeroom, you might have every student having a different physical science teacher, every student in a different math class, or even if they have the same math class, the teachers might not be on the exact same thing from day to day. So that has been one of the strengths within the academy and something that I'd like to see stay.
Seminar teachers are more understanding that students have lives outside of school, and they really put it in there that it's all right if you have things going outside of school, but in school, if you need help, seek it out. Like, if you need help, tell us, we'll help you. But if you don't ask us for help, we can't help you.
Well, thank you all. Citizens of our community rightfully have a question about how well our schools are doing. I invite the citizens of Faribault to investigate this program, the academy, the middle school model, a number of the things that are happening at the elementary schools. We have a lot of hardworking professionals working with a lot of more and more dedicated students. And success is not a score. Success is a habit. And the academy seems to be building those habits of trying daily, checking on yourself, progress daily, taking care of the details daily that will contribute to long-term success that no single score recorded on somebody's website somewhere can ever reveal. So again, thank you all for what you're doing. Students, keep up the good work. Teachers, keep supporting your students. Principal, thank you for your organization, and please help us help you.
Thanks, you guys.
And that brings us to another one of, I think, our District 656 positive steps, and that is a report on the 90-10 grading structure, the middle school schedule, and how that's working out at our middle school this year. Mr. Mahak, thank you, and we're looking forward to what you have to share.
Everyone knows Mrs. McDermott as well, our assistant principal at the middle school. So we have a PowerPoint. What we'd like to do is just kind of go through and recap some of the what we call the cornerstones of this change, and give you a quick update on the things that are working and some of the things that we had to adjust and kind of go back and tweak as we live the changes of the middle school model. So again, the whole concept of the middle school model was really based on the cornerstones that I have listed above. If I had to select probably our top three, I would say common planning time, advisory, and academic seminar would be the main cornerstones of these listed here. So, like I said, I'll just kind of walk through each one of these and give a little bit of an update on the principle behind it, kind of the strategy behind it, what's still working, and then some things that we're going to continue to tweak and continue to work on. So, common planning time for our teachers. Our teachers meet as a team. They have their regular prep period, and then they have the common planning time where the teams get together. They look at the different things that they can do for students. They look at, I'm going to skip forward here. Some of these things are what is accomplished or what is on the agenda for our teachers when they get together. We have 2-day weeks, like last week with Thanksgiving was a 2-day week. 3-day week would be your typical week where we have 3 7-period days, and then the modified block schedule the other 2 days a week. And then if we do have a 4-day week, we don't run the modified block schedule, so all 4 days would be the 7-period day, and the teams would be meeting during their common planning time. So you can see we have it scheduled out there. They have an agenda. They have kind of their to-do list on what needs to be accomplished, and kind of the strengths there again is looking at the positive communication, having the time to meet with students, having the time to meet with parents, having the communication go out to the families on the good things that the students are doing in the classroom. One thing that we want to work on here a little bit is just striving to use our data as much as possible. Looking at going through collaborative inquiry, going through our I'm going to talk about this in a little bit later on with our curriculum mapping, with collaborative inquiry, with learning targets, with common assessments, all those things that we're doing to improve the instruction, taking that data and using it more frequently and really digging down and diving into that data. We would like to continue to improve on that part for our teams to get together during this common planning time. Our modified block schedule, again, this is where we have our 7-period day, 3 days a week, and our 4 93-minute blocks on the other 2 days. Some of the things are, one thing that jumped out at us, and it was an issue early on, and it was one of those problems we wanted to have, our second chance breakfast. What we'll do on our block schedule days is have 8:25, 8:40, and 8:55 are the designated times for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to come and have breakfast if they didn't have breakfast at 7:30, and we're serving over 500 students on those block schedule days. It's about 75% of our students going through the breakfast line. We have students going to the cafeteria, and we have a station through our Play 60 grant that we received last year. Sodexo purchased a very large cart, and so we're able to haul that down the hallway, set it up by the media center, have students cycle through, and again get these types of numbers, 500 students eating breakfast at least on those block days. On an average day last year, we had about 130 students eat breakfast in the morning before school started. We still are getting that 130 on our 7-period days, but obviously, again, it's skyrocketing here. So one of those things we didn't foresee, but it's definitely been a huge advantage. But, okay, so that's kind of off on a tangent here. Back to the modified block schedule. What we have is those opportunities for extended learning for our labs, for our Phy-Ed department. They really kind of cash in on that and have that extended schedule of class time. One thing that we ran into, we were seeing during our early out weeks, we had our early out schedule, we had our 7-period day schedule, we had our Wednesday block schedule, and we had our Thursday block schedule. So that's a lot. And staff came to us and asked that, that's 4 different schedules these students are following that day. Can we make those weeks just a plain 7-period day? So we did eliminate the block schedule on the what was it, the last 7 or the last 8? Oh no, we already had one of the early outs.
And then we switched it,
yeah. So the remaining early outs went to the regular 7-period day.
Mike, just eliminate the early outs. I've been a proponent of let's not do those anymore. And
You're asking me to make that decision? Yeah, I think that's a topic to consider, but it was definitely one that put a wrinkle into our schedule here.
We'll refer that to the calendar committee.
Yeah.
And Colleen is aware of that too. So we've talked about that.
All right, and then probably the biggest thing here is staff. Many of our staff are not used to, haven't taught on a block period before, so just becoming comfortable with teaching for 93 minutes. If it's 93 minutes of lecture time, I think we all could understand how difficult that would be. Not having those opportunities to get up, to walk around, to stretch your mind, stretch your legs. And so, as it continues, staff is just becoming more and more used to that. It will take time. Colleen here actually just on some professional development opportunities that we can get out to our staffs just to get used to that and make sure that they utilize their time as well as they can. Advisory, like I said, that was probably in the top 3 here of things. And one of the things I remember attending an AMLE conference last fall was I attended a breakout session on advisory, and the presenter made a statement that this should be the class that your kids cry about missing on the last day of school. When they go away for their summer, they should miss their advisory teacher, they should be missing their advisory classmates, that this should be that time where they really bond and get together and establish that relationship. So I think we're definitely off on the right foot with that. We have groups of anywhere between 15 and 19? 17? 57 teachers are participating in the advisory program, so a nice small groups that they get together. When the year started, we had, I shouldn't say we, the committee put together a pretty extensive kind of to-do list. Here's your questions of the day, here's kind of the requirements, here's what we want you to do, here's the themes of the month, and really had it laid out really well, and trying to stay on top of that, trying to make sure that you go back and are you getting the right question up, do we have the right theme of the day? Some of those things were starting to interfere with the nuts and bolts, with the simple things of what advisory should be. So we scaled back on that a little bit, said don't worry about some of those things, worry about building rapport and relationship with your students, worry about academic progress, and make sure it's not a study hall. And kind of just simplifying the same concept, I think was a benefit for everyone, and really just getting back to the basics. Our academic seminar is our 4th block period of our second block day. On our first block period, on Wednesday of block, we'll have 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th hour. On Thursday, we have 2nd, 4th, and 6th hour, so that last block is the academic seminar. And the purpose of that is to have that enrichment and that enhancement opportunity. We break that down into 2 different sessions. Depending depending on what kind of homework help they need, depending on what type of interest they have, they can select, the students can select the session that they want to attend. That's a great theory. It works out real well. One of the missing pieces that we had was the system, accountability system. We originally looked at a program, Flex Scheduler is the name of it, and that came from Chaska. Chaska Middle School, their tech department developed this program for exactly that same thing. We looked at that, there was some concerns that, trying to put it all together, there were some concerns about support after we purchase it. Can they follow through? What happens if this changes? What happens if that changes? And so we made a decision to go with a different program. That program was called Enriching Students. Tried that program out, and it just kind of crumbled underneath us. Some of the promises that the salespeople gave us weren't happening, and it was turning out to be a program that was a lot more work on our end and wasn't meeting the needs that we needed it to meet, and so we went away from that program and got our money back. Since then, we used Google Docs, we used Sign Up Genius, and we're still having glitches in that. And so tomorrow morning, we're meeting again with our Flex Schedule group, and we're going to revisit that, and hopefully we bring back that Flex Scheduler that was designed solely for the purpose that we needed to work for. So with that, because we had these issues, and basically we had too many students that weren't signing up for a session and tracking that session in their advisory, it just became pretty cumbersome. And so 2 weeks ago we said we're just going to kind of go on hold here. We're going to get away from that. We're going to get Flex Scheduler in. We're going to get that up and running and feeling comfortable with that. And we're going back to the original model then after Christmas once that program is in place. So it was a glitch. It was something that there was frustrations about the accountability, frustrations about students being where they need to be, and so on and so forth. So we're hoping that we'll get those wrinkles ironed out. Kelly is chairing our PBIS committee and has a group of 9 that's on this.
Including myself, so there's 8 staff that go to training. So we're going through it officially through MDE and.
Hey, Kelly, can you talk to the mic a little bit? Get the mic a little closer. It's for the TV too. So, yeah.
So there's 9 of us total on our team that gets trained through MDE. We've been going to trainings. We've gone through 2 sessions with them, and then we're doing Swiss training tomorrow, and we've also taken one of our teachers, Sarah Simon, to get trained to be our PBIS coach. So it's going well. We've got a really good framework established. Doing the positives, we had our all-star breakfast here at the end of Q1, recognizing each staff member got to recognize 2 students for being Falcon Strong, being responsible, respectful, and safe. We had an awesome turnout. Todd was there and spoke. We had Freddie there. It was really great. And then we had our first PBIS celebration that same day. So we're going strong with the positives. We're having a Falcon Strong activity night here on December 15th. And working on getting some more donations for prizes for our students and stuff, and encouraging teachers to give out the tickets. So it's going well. Just, we need some more time to meet with staff to go over the frameworks and just reinforce some of the common expectations, but it's been a good addition to our building.
For the benefit of the folks at home, could you explain PBIS? We have a lot of acronyms in the educational world, and I'd like to make sure that the people at home understand what it...
Yep. It's positive behavior interventions and supports. So it's all about focusing on the 85 to 90% of students who are doing the right thing, and then working on interventions for our 5 to 10% of students who are struggling. And it's all about teaching expectations, so students who can't behave, it's not that they can't, but they need to be taught. So we're really working on positive language, common expectations, having frameworks throughout the building, and everybody being on the same page.
Thank you.
So on that line, then, one of the things that we kind of made some adjustments to was what I guess I'm labeling as our unstructured time. It really, students leaving the classroom, going to the bathroom, going to the office, whatever the case is, and making sure that they're reaching their destination in a timely manner and making sure that they're appropriate. So what we've done is we've made some changes with our passes, really clamped down with the teachers, making sure that they're signing the pass, having the date, having the time, some simple things like that, but getting that consistency put back in. And then the support staff right now, we're kind of rotating through and walking the halls, being out there, being visible for our students, checking their passes. It gives us an opportunity to see what it's like in the hallways, walk by the classrooms more often and try to peek in. But again, just have students seeing us out there and letting them know that we are monitoring things, that we are around, and we're making sure that we have a safe and secure building. Student-led conferences was new this year as well, part of our middle school model, and so students would sign up for a block of time. They would come in and they would, throughout the first quarter, they worked on a presentation, they had a script. They could stay exactly on that script. They could obviously add a little bit here and there and put their personal touches on it, but it gave them an opportunity to sit down and to talk to their parents. They could brag about the good things that are happening. They could hopefully be honest about where they need to improve and maybe where they need to take a deeper look, a deeper reflection at their work or study habits. The first one that we had here in the fall was successful. Our numbers were in the, I believe, 70% range for participation. That did not include some families we knew couldn't come, couldn't make it, whatever the case is. So the students took the presentation home with them, presented the same material to the parent at home, had the parent sign off, and then they kind of came back. But those weren't calculated in our attendance numbers. One of the things that we heard from parents was it's pretty tough. When we signed up in August at our open house for conferences in October, that was a good chunk of time. We know what we're going to do that far ahead, so we're working at that. Right now we have in the hour block, if you take 6 to 7 o'clock, we have a certain amount of time that's dedicated to schedule appointments, and then a certain amount of time that's dedicated to drop in. So if you still wanted to talk to the math teacher or the science teacher, you had that opportunity to buzz around and find that teacher. And we're going to make that time a little bit longer, so there's more of that floating around and finding the teacher, and then shorten the amount of time that they're scheduled to come in. So we're hoping some of those adjustments will improve the whole experience. So if we had to summarize, I would say this is a change. There are ups and downs. There are wrinkles that we encounter. There's probably wrinkles that we encounter every day. It does take time. In the big picture of things, we're talking about a 3-month time period. 1/4 of our first year is done. We've learned a lot, and we're making the adjustments where we think they need to be made. I know there's some students that don't like the block schedule. There's some staff members that are getting used to the block schedule. There's some staff members that love the academic seminar, and the students talk to them about, I've never done anything like that before. I've never had that opportunity. And there's others that are, again, kind of struggling on how you put that together. So we're definitely living the change, and change is difficult. So in the big picture of things, again, we're excited for this to continue on. And I put up here, Buffalo Middle School is looking at a similar change. They contacted us September, and they did a lot of the site visits like we did last year. They went to Chaska, and Chaska was telling them about the changes that we're making, so they want to come down and see our academic seminar block schedule in the works. And as Kelly and I talked about that, again, it's exciting because there are things that need an adjustment. There are things that needed tweaks, and there's, again, it's not perfect, but we're getting through those things to get a better program. So we're excited to share with them all the positive things that we're seeing, but we're also, as educators together, we want to give them the advice and help them through some of the bumps and wrinkles that we're experiencing. We have another slide here that looks into the grade. So the other part of our presentation was this 90-10 shift. And we've talked with our curriculum committee, we've talked with our leadership committee, just kind of explaining our grading method and what's happening as we're moving towards more standards-based, or making sure that our teachers are teaching standards and our students are being properly assessed by what they're learning. So one of the big, like earlier I talked about collaborative inquiry, we talked about the curriculum mapping, we've talked about learning targets, all of these different things that go on in our district, all these initiatives that we're implementing to make sure that we're providing the best education possible. One of the things that we're including into that is a consistent grading scale across the building, and then also a consistent move towards a 90% of assessments being part of your grade and 10% being the daily work, the homework, things of that sort. One of the rationales behind that, if you ever heard of or heard Rick Wormley speak, he does a fantastic job kind of explaining what the purpose of homework is and how education should be, or how education does take a look at the grading scale or the grading system. So I have a quick video I'd like to share with you. As that's doing its thing here, you have a hand, or no, we don't have the handles yet. Just take one of each. So what's being passed out now is kind of an overview of what we're doing within our curriculum, what's been done, what direction the middle school is moving in when it comes to grading and curriculum improvement, and taking instruction and hopefully seeing more positive results from that instruction.
Some are doing batting practice, some fielding, some catching, some need to lift some weights, some practice their running, their speed, but not everybody is doing catching practice. Not everybody is doing batting practice. You give different practice, different levels of readiness. Okay, so now, if we're it's formative in nature, is as you're coming to know, it needs to be a safe place where you can wrestle with things. Unfortunately, I've seen this down as young as first grade, but certainly all the way through elementary, middle school, and high school. It's more comfortable for students today to say, I forgot my homework, or I didn't have time to do my homework. You know, to come across as a little scatterbrained or irresponsible than to say, I didn't understand what I was doing and couldn't do it. Because we tend to just, oh no, it's a sign of weakness if you have academic struggle in any degree. So we've got to work on that side of it. I get that. But it does remind us of this role of homework. Given its role, then you decide how much it should count. Well, homework is formative in nature. It's as you're coming to know. But grades only report what you know against standards or outcomes or objectives at the end of the learning. So homework doesn't have a place in that report. Just think about this. What if a kid does no homework ever, but he demonstrates all the evidence, he aces every single test, he gets 100 on everything, but he does no homework, no practice? Should he get any grade less than an A? Most teachers would say no. But a lot of times, the reality is, the student gets not just a B, a C, or D, but often gets an F. When those teachers are interviewed, why did you do this? They often say, well, I wanted to teach him responsibility. I wanted to teach him a lesson. You can't get away with that in the real world. Well, actually, you can. This is a little bit radical, but hear me out before you judge it. Homework is 100% irrelevant as to the report of what students know against standards or can do against standards. It's very relevant to them coming to know it. I think practice does improve your performance with things. The problem is, what does a grade represent? It's only a report of what you know at the end. So any teacher method, any teacher technique that is used to get students to a standard can't be involved, woven in, entwined with the report of the student's performance against that standard. So what's in there? Class discussion, class participation, reading log minutes, group projects, homework. Those are all teacher techniques, and they're great. So please understand, yes, report homework. Have consequences if they don't do it. Really report that out. But separate that report from the academic report, because a grade can't be knowingly falsified. And if you weave homework into it, you knowingly falsify a grade. And that's an ethical breach. No teacher can do that. It turns out a lot of students in high school have slightly inflated grades, sometimes greatly inflated grades, and colleges who explore why they had A's in their transcripts, but they really B and C students, is because they did all this homework, or service to the school, or they brought in canned food for the canned food drive, or they tutored younger classmates, something along those lines that really wasn't clear and consistent evidence over time of what they know against the standards. And homework is one of the great perpetrators of that dilution of grade accuracy, the lowering of integrity. We don't want to do that. So most teachers who struggle with this, well, they begin to say, all right, I'll count all those peripheral things, homework included, as 20% of the grade instead of 40%. They try to whittle it down to 10. All right, homework will count 10%. All the rest of my grade will be 90% from the summative assessments. And that seems very legitimate. But think about it. If your grade for an A is 95 to 100, and the kid does no homework, he's already down to a 90%. Yet he might demonstrate 100% proof he knows it all. The highest grade he can get is a B, which is a false report of what he knows against standards. And you can't do that. Decisions to provide feedback or to document students' progress, which are the three big reasons why we do grades in the first place. You undermine the entire enterprise of grading, and it makes it much more difficult for the teachers that the child has the following year. So, what would grading experts say? Homework should probably count 0. What is it in my class? Well, I'm out of the classroom right now because I'm helping teachers work through this. But when I'm in the classroom, it's 5% or less. I know it's a moderate hypocrisy. But what's in that 5%? All those formative teacher techniques and methods. So really homework counts about what? 1.2%? It's negligible. Because in my school, an A was 94 to 100. Kid could not do any of that other stuff, and he could actually demonstrate 100% evidence for those standards. The report would be accurate. So count homework just as much until it crosses the point where it actually influences the accuracy of the grade. Then you can't count it, that number anymore.
So one of the handouts that we handed out, the one with the all means all Freddie at the top, we handed this out to staff at the beginning of the year, and just kind of what their goals, what their checklist, as it says, their to-do list for the upcoming year. As you can see, we have that in there with the different categories of formative and assessments, the different weights, and what the goal is to make sure that the syllabi is identified, the learning targets, the curriculum map, all of those things are done. The redo, the retake, repair policies in place, and then move towards a 90-10 grading scale. And you can see this on the FMS grading for learning, kind of a report of what's been done in the past and what is being presently done and what we're looking at the future. And that 90-10 again is kind of the goal that we have as we're moving forward. The third sheet that I handed out, or that was handed out, is just some samples taken from our, most of the, or if not all of the core classes are on there, some elective classes. Just giving a quick summary of what's taking place. You can see right now that there are many of the content areas that are grading on the 90-10 scale. English language arts is still at the 40-60 split, knowing that again they're going to move towards that. They wanted to do it a little bit more gradually rather than jumping into it on year one. Social studies obviously is showing an 80-20 split, but again, just kind of what the departments are doing right now and how they're moving towards that, and then most importantly, what their policy on the repairs and the retakes and things, how that gets incorporated into it. With that, then, the last slide, we had some information on...
One question.
Yeah.
With homework, how do you respond to parents that say, hey, when I was in school, I had homework?
I think probably the biggest question that we hear right now is, what about those students that struggle with test taking? So what if I freeze? What if I don't do well under pressure and I don't perform well with a test? So I'll answer both of those. That type of thing, and remember, a lot of our classes, a lot of the content areas are doing more than a paper and pencil test. There's presentations, there's projects, there's group work, there's all those other type of summative assessments that come together rather than just a paper, pencil, multiple choice, true, false type of a test. As far as the homework goes, I think that is a part that parents are struggling right now, that exactly what Mr. Wormley was talking about. Those things are being added in there, but not giving that true representation. If we do all this work, can that get my grade up? At the end of the quarter, you know how teachers and schools get bombarded with, I'm at an 84%, what do I have to do to get that to an 8? Can I have some extra credit? What can I do to boost that grade up? So, it is kind of a mindset that people have to get used to. It is an important part of the learning process. It's just not going to be part of that grade. So, we're hearing, I received one email from a parent that had some questions on it. I guess I don't know exactly how many teachers have been emailed on it, but nothing substantial has been brought to my attention.
Didn't you even have a meeting to welcome parents into question, and you had like 2 or 3?
Yeah.
I know, I would have been there. We were in a meeting that night, but I heard that there was like 3 maybe parents that showed up. So
the nice thing is there was 7 staff members and then 2 parents, so we were prepared to answer some questions on that. But I think one of the analogies that I've heard that I really like again is if you're playing a basketball game, being a former basketball coach, and we lose by 3 points, I can't go to the other team. I can't go to the official and say, like, well, we had a really good practice this week. We were making every one of those free throws when we were at practice. It didn't happen in the game, but do I get some credit because we practice really well, we practice really hard, so, you know, kind of looking at it that way, that made sense to me.
How do you prepare these kids for college where, I mean, you better go there, you're paying for yourself or your parents, but they give out tests.
Well, I think this actually prepares them more. When I listen to it, Richard, I'm hearing that students maybe are learning that they have to practice, they have kind of have their own motivation to practice and get better at something similar to college.
I think one thing, and I actually had a conversation with Jamie about this and talked to Jason a little bit about it too, is that we're trying to figure out where that area is, because once you get to college, you have to know how to do homework. I mean, that's a huge part of being in college is doing homework. And then maybe the approach is learning how to do that homework, not so much giving them
I'm not hearing you're
like
going to give less of it. I'm just hearing you're not going to grade it.
Right.
It's not going to be as big a part of the grade. So I think they're going to still give homework and have that practice for students, but they just won't be, it won't be such a big part of the grade. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
It's still all recorded in the grade book, so like as a parent, you could see that your child wasn't doing their work, and then when you see that they have a low test score, you could say, oh, you haven't been doing the practice, and then you didn't do well on the test. But we're really trying to get the grade to reflect what a student has learned in the course versus having it being inflated by busy work.
Sam, go ahead.
So I think this helps, like, because when you go to high school, it's like 70% test, 30% grades. So I think that helps a lot, because coming from, when I went for middle school, it was just like all your points. Like if you had 500 points and you had like a 400, then you had like a B or whatever it was. And like this kind of sounds like it helps making that the tests are more important. The one question I have with a 90% test to 10% homework is, how do you prevent a student from just saying, well, if I don't do this homework assignment, then, you know, it doesn't really reflect my grade that bad? Because I know, like, in some of my other classes, like, I think I have a history class that's 80% tests, 20% homework assignments, and there's kids that will have, like, 5 missing assignments but have a B+ in the class because they do great in the test. But I'm just asking, like, how do you prevent that from happening where a student, like, loses his work ethic, where they're like, oh, I can just miss that assignment, like, it's not a big deal?
Well, I think in that 10% again, like the video talked about, there is classroom participation. That's part of that 10%. There's, I think his example was he uses 5%. So if you look at class participation, you look at homework, you look at the other factors, that homework slice was really about he said 1.2%. So again, in the big picture of things, not doing your homework can affect your overall grade. More so what's going to affect you being prepared. If you're not doing your homework, you're not going to be prepared for that presentation or that test or the assessment. So now looking at some of the data, looking at how we fared with the middle school model, how we fared with some of these curriculum changes. Do I have it?
It's coming. Hold on, he's coming.
So what we were able to, or Kelly, I should say, Kelly was able to pull our grades from our first quarter and compare them to last year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get our fourth quarter grades. So we took the last grading period that we had available, looking at the breakdown of all the grades, I guess, from quarter 3 of last year, compared it to quarter 1 of this year. Now, keep in mind, one of the big things here, if you do some real quick math, and if you're good at that, congratulations, but last year our students had 6 class periods. This year they have 7 classes. So there are more grading opportunities, and that's why you see some discrepancies there. But as much as apples to apples as we could get, we were trying to compare the number of failing grades last year compared to the number of failing grades this year. And last year we were sitting at 7.7%. This year we're at 5.9%. So our failing grades did decrease.
our A's and B's went up just a little bit too. So we had 40% A's and 26% B's versus 43 and 24. So our D's stayed exactly the same, but the F's decreased, A's and B's went up a little bit, and C's went down just a tad from 17% to 15%.
Are you concerned with the D's and F's?
Concerned about the number of these?
The numbers, you know, again, you always strive, you know, for 0 theoretically.
Right, yeah.
You know, it just, what are you doing?
I think everything that we do is striving for better comprehension, better learning, better knowledge, gaining of knowledge. And yeah, I think in theory it would be nice if everyone would pass the class. The reality is that's not happening right now, but I've said it over and over, the curriculum mapping, making sure that teachers are looking at their curriculum year after year and month after month. The collaborative inquiry push that we're having this year, the learning targets that we've been focusing on, all of those things are geared towards reducing the number of failing grades and making sure that our teachers are using best practices and research-based practices to improve instruction to help students gain the knowledge that they need.
I think the one, just if I can chime in, the one missing piece that we've sat and we've gone back and forth, actually two pieces, I guess, is that we're really working hard to make sure teachers are getting their students engaged in learning. And the second thing is, and Anne Marie's been a big part of this too, is we really need to figure out a way how to get parents more involved in our schools. And those are two big deals that we need to figure out. And I know that Anne Marie's working really hard on trying to think about how we can bring those people in with community schools, not just bring parents in, but bring them in there purposefully so that they're not just there, they're actually doing something that can enhance the way students learn. So we know that those are two missing components, and we're going to start working hard in trying to make those things work. So that is a big missing piece.
Mike and Kelly, can I just comment on the 90-10? I by no means am I'm the least expertful person in this entire room with regards to this. I shared this with Todd. I was at an event about 3 weeks ago, and I had a mom not real happy about the 90-10. Her son is really struggles with tests and anxiety. And she looked at me and she so profanely told me that it's my fault that her son is failing in the new middle school model. And needless to say, I didn't know anything about the 90-10. And she said, well, yeah, you guys came up with the 90-10. And I said, what is the 90-10? I have no idea. And granted, I have a 8th grade daughter here at the middle school. And so my biggest thing is I don't know, and shame on me as a parent of an 8th grader, if all this information was sent home or on the parent portal. It probably was. I simply probably missed it, and my wife maybe saw it. She maybe missed it, type of thing. I've only heard a few parents, say that type of thing, and I can see where that's an issue. As we all know, there's certain people that just really, anxiety is an issue, and tests cause anxiety. My only other comment or question would be is how the 90-10 lines up with the grading at the high school, especially with those 8th graders going into 9th grade, right? We just heard a lot about the 9th grade academy and whatnot. And however it does or doesn't, I have no idea. I would just think that as it evolves, hopefully it will, so that those 9th graders are kind of, it's just almost a seamless transition. And if homework here is only 10%, and if homework up there is 30%, yes. Is that right, wrong, or indifferent? I don't know, but I would think we would want that to be a semi-seamless transition. But once again, I'm just throwing thoughts out there. I have no idea, and that's up for all you experts to figure that stuff out. So, and I can tell you on the middle school model, the deal where you have a 90-minute class, and you said I think your Phi Ed staff is really enjoying it or whatever. My 8th grade daughter took women's self-defense or something. She thought it was the greatest thing that the middle school's ever offered. I think she got to throw somebody on the ground, and somebody threw her on the ground, and she learned self-defense, and it was so great. So anyway, hats off on that, and that's just my feedback that I've heard, and I know nothing else. So.
So I'll speak for just a moment as somebody who teaches college and what I see. I've never heard the phrase 90-10 before you guys were talking about it with the middle school, but I would say it's and I don't know how broad this is. I haven't done a study across colleges, but I would say it's a fair reflection of what I see at the college level. Homework, I give a lot of homework, and it's worth very little credit in my class. And for me, as somebody who's assigning homework, and this is something I feel like I didn't hear, and I just want to make sure as a part of this conversation, when I'm assigning homework, and I assign a lot, it's really important to me that I'm focusing that homework on this is your learning experience. And I think when you're giving homework that is a big part of the grade, your reasons for giving that homework can lean yourself towards busy work. I need kids to be able to do this so they can earn the points and blah, 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 as opposed to I'm giving this homework because it's supposed to help the kids in the classroom learn, which is, to me, the only reason that you ever give homework. And I would say my own personal experience is that there is an absolute correlation between those who are doing well and do the homework and those who, I heard him talk for like 10 minutes, it felt like, saying about the kid who never did homework and aced all of his exams. That has never, ever happened in my class, ever. Like, there is no student who has ever aced my exams and didn't do the homework. It does not happen where I am and what I'm teaching. So I felt like that was overemphasized in that particular presentation, because I think if the homework is being done well, it is the learning experience, and therefore the students who are doing it are the ones who are doing well on the exams. So I think what I like about it, and what I would hope that you would do in your conversations, is that to make sure that one of the advantages, I think, of making the homework not worth as much is that it can absolutely completely focus you on the only reason I'm giving this homework ever is because it's a learning experience for the students, which is the only reason it should ever be given, in my opinion. And then I think, to work to emphasize towards the students that doing it will help you, and hopefully finding ways that they can see that doing the homework helps them. For instance, it's been known in my class that homework problems show up on the exams, so your motivation for doing the homework begins to go up. The other thing I would say towards the test anxiety thing, which I hear all the time at a college, as you can imagine, when families are, the tuition and fees at St. Olaf is $50 grand a year right now. So when a family feels like they have test anxiety, we hear it. And I think there's some reality to that, perhaps not as much as parents and students often think that there is. We have some mechanisms in place where I teach, because tests are so high stakes, to try and lower some of the anxiety issues. For instance, if a student works with advisors, they can get extra time on an exam. They have to go through a process to do that. It's not automatic. They can take it in a separate room, in a quiet room, instead of in a high anxiety classroom with everybody else. So we have some mechanisms in place and it's fairly common at St. Olaf, for students who are worried about being anxious on exams, don't feel like they perform on exams, to try and they still have to take the exam, they still have to perform on the exam, but we do some things to lower the anxiety. We have a lot more room and a lot less schedule than you guys are at the middle school, so I'm not sure how that translates, but it might be something to think about. If testing within the classroom is going to be a bit more high stakes, what else can we do to mitigate that somewhat? Might be something to think about. So those are just a couple things I'll add from my experiences.
Just briefly, and not diminishing what Jamie's accomplishing, but clearly at the middle school, you're changing the wings out on an airliner while it's in the air. It's been some major changes for staff and students and parents and board members, for that matter. I didn't like homework when I was going to school, and I liked it even less when I was an educator, unless it is something that adds to study skills. So we have to separate out teaching study skills from homework. And so much of what I've seen over the years is really classroom management. So I've got a 50-minute math period, and I go over the first and review the homework from yesterday, and then you do the new learning, then you assign homework. And one of the things you have to do to make sure everybody behaves is make sure that they're working on something, and so you give homework. And the problem is the students that understand the concepts already, they can do it and get it done. The students that struggle with the concepts have to take it home, and they don't know any more about it then. So that's one of the things that I've always looked at in terms of that. But I certainly support what it is you're doing there.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, I'd like to just say one thing. What the middle school, I was fortunate enough to work with some of the middle school staff last spring and summer as they were developing and redeveloping the middle school concept. And it is a complex process, to say the least. What you seem to be doing represents what I once called, or had called in one of my professional development things, is a learning organization. And what you're doing seems to reflect that. You're learning, you made the best plans possible, but you are not so married to the plans that you're not willing to learn from the experience of trying to implement them. And at the risk of oversimplifying a very detailed and very interesting report to me, and having sat through a lot of teachers' meetings, I haven't called many interesting, you had me at relationships. I heard that earlier over and over and over again. And I think that is the path to success, is building relationships between the school and the students, the school and the parents, but also among the professionals in the school. So you seem to be doing that. I commend you for it. And again, I say, as I said to the high school, if there's something that we as a board can do, please let us know. I recognize the effort. I see the challenges, but I have confidence in your ability to meet them. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda, community comment. This is the time where any member of the audience, the community, who would like to speak to the board can come forward. 3-minute limit per speaker and 15-minute limit per topic. Anyone hiding under a chair somewhere? All right, I will take that as we don't have any comment tonight. All right, that brings us to item 6, the consent agenda. We can approve these items, which include minutes from October 30th and November 13th, employment situation, additional assignments, and the authorization of payments, transfers, and investment activity as a single item, unless a board member would like to have an item dealt with separately. Are there any items that any board member would like to pull up? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, you are correct. All those in favor, please answer when your name is read.
Tom.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Yvette.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Andrea.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, it passes 7-0.
Thank you. Anybody could have voted no. I didn't demand an aye. All right. Item 7, a report from our curriculum committee. Ms. Cardenuto.
Good evening. Our Curriculum Advisory Committee met on Monday, November 20th. One of the first things that we did is we took a look at what I'm currently passing around, which is the World's Best Workforce Summary. The World's Best Workforce is a yearly report that is due to MDE by December 15th. So the Curriculum Advisory, along with the C&I team, helped to develop this summary. There is a template that goes with it that gets shipped up to MDE, and then there will be an online document with all of the data embedded in it online, so that we can, so you can click on the links to see the full reports. This summary is required by law, and we needed to host a public meeting. So first, our Curriculum Advisory Group went ahead and took a look at the report. We quickly made some changes and held a public meeting for people to view that report, so that we've met the requirements for MDE. So I'll give you the opportunity to take a look at that. The next thing that we discussed was a brand new World Cultures class, World Culture number 2 in the middle school. So the middle school, Kelly Mike came and presented the need for extending World Cultures to a secondary class for next school year. And so our Curriculum Advisory Committee has voted to move that along to the Finance Committee. We are happy to have World Cultures number 2 and understand that the first World Cultures class is going extremely well, and kids are interested and would like to take the next section. And so we will design that and make that happen for next school year. The next discussion that we had at Curriculum Advisory was 90-10. We saw the exact same video that we saw here tonight and had some discussions with the Curriculum Advisory group just to kind of get some information. Great questions asked. Mike and Kelly did a really good job of explaining what 90-10 is and why it's important for our middle school model. Then Kelly stood up and talked about the registration guide that they have at the middle school, I believe by Christmas. I believe by Christmas time they will be ready to go with the registration guide, and middle school students will register shortly thereafter in January, I believe. Tom, Jason, anything that I forgot? That was basically our whole meeting. Okay, so our World's Best Workforce, as I have said, by law it has to be published, so the full report will be published online, but we also will put this summary that we've created because it's just a shorter version for people to view. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Colleen. I was at the curriculum meeting on the 20th, and I recognize that the title, The World's Best Workforce, is a requirement under law.
Yes.
But I'd like to say that I have seen tonight and in many previous nights that we are working hard not to just prepare the world's best workforce. We are working hard to prepare the world's best citizens. And I think the reports that we heard about the academy and the middle school and reports to come about elementary efforts will reflect that. So thank you for all this work.
Thank you.
We have no technology report this evening. Brings us to item 8, Policy Committee. No reports on the minutes. We have the policy 705 on investments being presented tonight for first reading.
Yeah, and Andy and I have been going back and forth today. Did we finally conclude that we're not going to do a first reading this? We are doing. Okay. Do you want to come up here, Andy, and just tell me? There weren't very many corrections. There were just some grammatical things. In one of the things it said 60, and then in parentheses it said 90. So we want to make sure it's 90 and 90. Things like that, very minor. And then we're going to explain also why we're bringing this to your attention too.
Good evening. One of the things that Todd and I have been looking at in the investment policy is that there are some guidelines in the policy as to reporting to the school district or to the school board, and also in relation to how our funds are divvied up amongst different banks. And we found that we're really not quite doing that, and we want to do that. So we wanted to bring it forward for a first reading so that you're aware of what's in the policy. You as a school board can have input as to whether or not you still want that in the policy, or if you'd like it changed at all. And then we will begin implementing the reporting that you decide that you would like to see, and make sure that we're following the guidelines as well that are laid out in the exhibits at the end of the policy.
We also have a policy meeting scheduled between now and the second reading, so we wanted the board to take the first glance. Sometimes we do that just so the entire board gets to see it first, and then it'll go to the policy committee on December 5th, I think. So, but just a couple of highlights to take a look at in that piece. I don't know if you have it in front of you. I can just summarize. There's a couple of things. There's an OPEB, and it refers, you understand the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits. That's our severance packages that we keep for us. The Finance Committee directed Andy and I to look into this to see what the investment opportunities are for our current OPEB funds, and we are going to do that. So it's all covered in the policy. It's in there. It's covered by statute. We just want to make sure that you're understanding that for Andy and I to go forward, it really doesn't need anything other than once we bring it to you and present the information to you, your approval. And we'll get that information to you probably in January. The other piece of it is we've really been working with local banks to try to see what they would like to do for investments. And in our policy, again, we may go out to our local banks and get some quotes, which we've done, and then invest a certain dollar amount within those banks according to what the highest quotes were, and we would ladder that. And so we will bring those back to the Finance Committee and to you guys as well. We are looking at investing about $150,000 in each of the 4 local banks, First United, Reliance, Premier, and State Bank, thank you. And it's been a good conversation with the local bankers. It's not a lot of money, but it's an investment, and it's kind of a first step for our school district to start doing something locally. And finally, the last piece of the policy that you can take a look at, if you're going to look at anything, is that the policy requires to only have, at the very most, 75% invested into one fund. And right now, we're quite honestly, we're almost at 100% that's funded into the Minnesota Liquid Asset Fund, and that's about $15 million. So we need to diversify a little bit according to the policy. And again, when we do the OPEB amount, that's going to take away about $2.4 million. We still need to make up a little bit of ground. So we're going to go back and after we take off the $600,000 that we're going to invest in the local banks, we've got another $1.3 million we need to figure out what to do with, because we do want to take that 25% and diversify with that. And we'll bring that back to the Finance Committee and get some suggestions for that. So we're looking at investing and trying to make our money work a little bit for us at the same time being responsible. We're really dictated by statute of what we can invest. They're all pretty safe investments. And as we move forward, the Finance Committee will have a lot of information for us for that. Okay? Any questions on that or concerns? We would like to change the 60 to 90 in the document. That's really the only change, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What page is that on?
That was...
It's under the reporting. It says something like 60 days after the year end will report results.
Yeah, it's underneath Roman numeral 14, reporting requirements, and then letter B. It should say 90 instead of 60 there.
So ours does say 90. It's been changed.
Ours actually says 60 now. We'd like to change it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It spells 60. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. Do you need something from us to change
Nope,
that?
this is just first reading and reporting to you, and then we'll bring it to policy, and then hopefully get a second reading in December.
And all the OPEB trust language is already in here.
That's correct. It's all covered by statute. The two things that we'll talk about is revocable and irrevocable trusts.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Any further questions? All right, we'll see that again in December. Brings us to item 8C, consider approval for the rescission of policy number 454.4 regarding insurance.
This again, sometimes I have Kathy dig into the archives. This is just outdated. And we didn't bring this to policy. It's just an old policy that we need to rescind. Yeah, it's actually covered in the teachers' all the staff contracts. Yep.
Okay, so this is a cleanup step.
Yep.
All right, I believe, unless there are further questions, I can ask for a motion to approve the rescission of policy 454.4.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to item 9. The Finance Committee had a meeting on November 20th, and I don't know who's going to give us a report, but we have a report listed. Anything we should know?
No, it was a very positive meeting, and we approved the contracts that are presented tonight to the board.
Okay. All right, then we need, let's see, we need an action step on item B1, the fiscal year 17-18 Divine Mercy Reading Consultant Agreement.
Yeah, that's just, we have title funds that flow through our district, and then the private schools are entitled to a portion of those funds, and that's just what they're going to be using them for.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 17-18 Divine Mercy Reading Consultant Agreement.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under item 9C, we have an enrollment report. We have some materials in our packet. Do we need any further description of that at this point? All right, then we also have materials on the financial reports, which seem just an ongoing item that we see every month. Unless there are questions or comments about that. All right, that brings us to item C3, gifts and donations. This is a resolution, and I would like to take this opportunity to take note that I got my Kindle to work, and I do have these now after not having them earlier. We have 7 specific gifts and donations. On behalf of the board, we'd like to thank all the groups responsible for continuing to support our programming for our students. The first one is from the Cable Connection and Supply Company in the amount of $100 for the robotics program. Item 2 is from the Innovate Food Processors, Inc., $100 for our robotics program. Item 3, from Donahue's Greenhouse, $100 for the robotics program. And from Healy Construction, in the amount of $250 for our robotics program. So thank you to those 4 organizations and groups that have made this contribution to what seems to be a growing and successful robotics program. I would like to suggest that the robotics team read the book I, Robot by Isaac Asimov, but that's perhaps out of line here, so I'll Chair, you're out of order. We mentioned this earlier, item 5, from the estate of David Thomas Jackson, in the amount of $100,000, a donation for the athletic department to be used to offset the cost personally paid by students competing in varsity athletics. So the more students we can get involved, the better, and this is a wonderful donation to help that. Item 6, from the Hope United Methodist Women, in the amount of $75, a donation to be used for school lunches as needed. And that's an item that's been in the news for some time, and hungry kids don't learn, so all that we can do to help make sure that that is not an issue in our district is welcome. And item 7, this one's got several subparts to it, from Patrick Andreas, Farmers Insurance. Educational supplies and equipment with an estimated value of $100 per month per school. Okay? Item subpoint A here is at Lincoln. I believe they're doing fluorescent light filters and scholastic books and CDs. At Jefferson Elementary, 8 student chairs. At Roosevelt Elementary, 8 headphones, 5 balance ball desk chairs. There was an interesting report online about those not too long ago. At the middle school, hand wrist squeeze toy for autism mood relief, stress relief, Play Visions ball set, and lapel microphones. And last but not least, item E, at the high school, 4 American Sign Language movies, ESL and ASL games, and a drying rack for EL art projects. Again, our thanks to all those who have made these donations to our district. Every little bit helps, and we thank you for your generosity. I need a motion to adopt this resolution of these donations.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe this is a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk?
Tom.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Yvette.
Oh, Yvette had to leave, I'm sorry.
Myself, aye. Andrea.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Passes 6-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right, that would bring us to item 10, other committee reports. Insurance, no report. Wellness, no report. Community education, I see Ms. Anne Marie Leland in the back coming forward.
Okay, good evening. So I just have a couple of reports. United Way has been able to provide us some funding, $3,000 for adult education, and that will help with navigation services for our students. Neighborhood homework help, $1,500 that will go to Cannon River Mobile Home Park. Project ABLE, which is our adults with disabilities, $1,500, which will reduce the cost of programming to participants, and $3,800 is our service learning program. So that is, Brian is working with students individually to prep them for jobs and work. So it helps to buy them clothes, helps them all sorts of things. It's an awesome program. The other part of my report is around community schools. The one thing that I reported out in one of our cabinet meetings that we all thought was really interesting was the partnership that we have with Buckham Library is really going well. The outreach that they've been doing at the community school at Jefferson they've done 11 sessions between October and November, October 2nd through November 8th, so about a month. Total attendance of students is 142, library cards issued is 21, and what's unique about this is the Tumble Books, which is the library's online ebooks for kids, is in circulation of 797, and typically just a month for the library is 20 to 50 circulations. So their numbers have skyrocketed around ebooks, which I believe is excellent, as Colleen would probably agree in terms of getting our kids reading more. So it's a great program. In terms of food, I was hearing earlier discussion around making sure our kids are eating, and our community school dinner program, both at Jefferson and at the middle school, is feeding families. We've had everywhere from 20 kids and families to 80 plus in our dinner program. So it's really done well so far. But that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yeah.
This evening we have no report from the Facility Committee nor from Special Services. Brings us to item 11A. Consider the approval of Resolution 18-07 establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Mr. Sesker, could you explain that to everyone?
Sure. This is a new law that was passed last legislative session. We were able to pick our own polling places, as you recall, at the last election because the law hadn't changed yet. It didn't go into effect until 2018. So any bond issues that we want to pass in the future, if it's going to be an off election, we have to use designated areas as designated by the county and the city on their regular elections. So we did some research. Each of the we've talked about this before, but each time we have a polling place that we designate, it costs between $8,000 and $10,000. And there are a lot of different polling places in our district. So rather than having all the polling places, Kathy did a great job of trying to analyze where do we have most of the voters. And we chose these different areas, P1, P2, P3, and P4. Those are regularly designated places right now for the city and the county voting, and we eliminated everything else because the largest populations are located in those areas, and that made the most sense. It doesn't make any sense to do all the polling places, because to spend $10,000 at each polling place is it's a lot of money just for 4 polling places. So this is our suggestion. We have to pass this resolution before January 1st, 2018. Kathy did a lot of work on this. I think it's a solid plan. There are places where people are familiar with. So when people ask us where they need to vote, then we can direct them to these exact locations. If we decide to do it off normal election time.
So no more voting at the high school or district office?
That's correct. We don't have a choice. That's a state law. Unless the county or the city decides to designate those places, then we'll have to go back.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
We have the motion and a second to consider the approval of this combining polling places for multiple precincts and so on. I'm not going to read that all that Mr. Sesker just described. This needs to be a roll call vote as it is a resolution.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Andrea?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, it passes 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right, that brings us to item 11B. And I would like to apologize to the board and to the audience. I thought I had emailed a copy of our superintendent evaluation report in a timely way, and now we have it. All right, we didn't have it before, but thanks to the genius of our staff, we do. On the evening of November 20th, 2017, the Faribault School Board met in a closed session in order to discuss a periodic evaluation of our superintendent, Mr. Todd Sesker. The areas that the board discussed and of his performance that we evaluated were visibility in the community, communications with educational stakeholders, and support for ongoing efforts to improve student achievement. The board had some discussion and determined that at this point, we find that Superintendent Sesker's performance in these areas exceed our expectations. We also made a plan to establish a hard copy, probably objective performance survey that we will distribute by June of 2018. This is similar to a process that we did several years ago, and we're going to get that back, where we'll distribute those surveys to members of the administration, teaching staff, paraprofessional staff, other employee groups. And we invite anyone with concerns to talk to a board member. But as I said, based on our meeting on Monday night, we find that Mr. Sesker's performance exceeds what we would expect. And I would like again, well, then I'll be quiet, that's it. We do have extra copies for anybody who would like one. Okay, I think we are required by law to make that kind of report, and we will have a more detailed report once the objective performance survey is distributed and analyzed. All right? And that brings us to item 12. Other items of information. We have a student representative here this evening. Do you have anything you'd like to share with the board about what's going on and what you're looking forward to?
Starting this week, the Faribault Student Council is starting the Toys for Tots fundraiser, which our goal is to raise $10,000 to buy presents for the Toys for Tots Foundation, which I believe on December 11th we will be shopping and delivering those presents. the way that we've done this is actually tonight we have like a dodgeball tournament going on. So we're trying to get fundraisers for the kids and how to get them involved and help them get this. But like I said, our goal is $10,000 again, and the way we do this is just our in-school fundraising. But I also ask if there's any outside donors looking to donate for our Toys for Tots Foundation. That would be great.
Thank you very much. All right. School board members, is there anything going on you'd like to share? Yes, Mr.
This coming Friday and Saturday, I'll be attending the Delegate Assembly up in St. Louis Park on those 2 resolutions that the Faribault School Board voted for. And I did some lobbying already at the pre-delegate assembly, basically dealing with testing. And I think I told you got a lot of response on my passionate speech. See if I can do the whole thing in front of the assembly, but I did get a lot of positive support on that. Then if it does pass or does not pass, I'll be working with Chad over here, talking to our state rep and state senator. Either way, we're gonna have to, we're gonna need their assistance on this. But the biggest, MSBA was in opposition, and when you boil everything down, what they're afraid of is that of federal funding losses and money. But then after my little passionate speech, basically says, maybe it's time to say, hey, you know what? We can ask for a waiver. Or something where we don't get penalized. So it's across the board, no matter, what your political ambitions are or whatever. It's people are tired of being penalized, and it's and I did mention that we have a very passionate chair on testing. So, but again, I'll present that. Actually, our voting will be Saturday morning up in St. Louis Park, and then on Friday night we're going to have an FBI agent talk about cyber security. So I shall report back on the 11th of December.
On behalf of myself and I think the other board members, Mr. Olson, we'd like to thank you for your efforts in working with the MSBA and trying to advance the causes of quality education. Thank you very much. Other board members?
Mr. Chair, sorry,
sure.
Can I just, the newspaper was not here when Dave Jackson's sister was here and presented the donation and whatnot. Todd, can I just make sure that you have Danny line up an interview between the newspaper and Karen Evans to discuss a little bit about it? This is, almost my 3rd full year. I don't ever remember the school district getting a donation in the $160,000 range. I read the newspaper often. I didn't read it when I was at college, but I'm not sure how often Faribault Public Schools gets donations in that size and in that form. And so it's a really great thing. And so it'd just be great if somehow, some way, the school district and the newspaper could publish or, line up something there. It'd be great if that was possible. So just thank you for that. And once again, thank you to their family. Extremely, extremely generous and great to see. So,
having been a part of this district for a long time, I'll say that those kinds of donations are rare and they are welcome. I believe that the Ball Foundation has made some sizable contributions in the past to various parts of our programming, but the David Thomas Jackson donation is also very valuable to us, and we thank them, and anything we can do to express our thanks and get that information out to the community, we'd be happy to do. Any other board members wish to comment this evening? right, Mr. Superintendent.
One thing that Sam did not report that I was going to fill in for him is that the theater did perform Almost Maine, and if you had a chance to go watch it, it was actually a very good performance. It was some short snippets of love stories and some really outstanding acting by our students, and some outstanding directing by Paul Johnson. Winter sports are in full gear right now. They're just going like crazy. Our robotics program is going strong. We've got some music programs coming up, and everything is just really, we're full steam ahead right now. It's really fun to go down to the high school before school, during school, and after school to see all the activities and all the things that the kids are interested in. I was part of, well, I also went to the state swim team competition up at the University of Minnesota. That was great to see, and I do want to say congratulations to our Big 9 partners, Owatonna, for their football state championship, so congrats to them. And then also I wanted to tell Mr. Olson that I had a board member from a different community come and say that, boy, you have a board member that's really passionate about those resolutions that I was at there. He did a great job when he was up there, so it is getting noticed around the state, so I appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, if there is no other comment, brings us to item 13, dates to remember. A week from tomorrow, no, I'm sorry, this is tomorrow. Tuesday, November 28th, Community Education Advisory Meeting at 4:30 here at the district office. Tuesday, November 28th at 4:30, the Subsec Board Meeting in the STEP Building. Monday, December 4th at 7:30 a.m., the Finance Meeting here at the district office. Tuesday, December 5th, at 3:30 p.m., the Insurance Committee here at the district office. Tuesday, December 5th at 4:30 p.m., the Policy Meeting here at the district office. Wednesday, December 6th, 3:30 p.m., the Wellness Committee meeting here at the district office. Monday, December 11th, will be the regular board meeting, including a Truth and Taxation meeting. So that'll be here at the district office at 5:30 on Monday, December 11th. Thursday, December 14th, 4 p.m., the Facility Committee meeting here at the district office. And Monday, December 18th, 3:30 p.m., the next Curriculum Advisory meeting here at the district office. So unless there's anybody who would like to tell a joke or do anything else out of the box, we are adjourned.
We have
to have any power. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Now you can do it.
Now.